The Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and His Wonderful Dog Bulger. Chapter 5, Part 2. Having purchased a number of condemned hulks for the purpose of testing the strength and fury of the whirlpool, I caused a strong hawser to be rigged to a capstan on shore, and was in this way enabled to let the launch approach within a ship's length of the whirlpool with perfect safety. In truth, it was, when roused to the full measure of its fury by the intrusion of any large floating body, a sight to strike terror in the stoutest heart. With a deep booming and rumble, its waters rose in tumultuous commotion, boiling, bubbling, seething, till snow-white foam covered the pool like a mantle of bleached linen. Then lifting the intruder, which in this case was one of the hulks that I had ordered to be launched upon them, these angered waters whirled it completely around. In an instant, as if exhausted by this tremendous effort, a mysterious calm sank upon the pool. The foam sheet, broken in shreds, danced gently on the rippling bosom of the waters. All was peace, save that the hulk still lay trembling like an affrighted being in the lap of this resting monster. For look, it is aroused again. Faster and faster it whirls its prey. Deeper and deeper its now wide open jaws draw down the ill-fated hulk. A terrible roar tells that the end is near. 'Tis gone! Aye, but wait! It will give up its prey again. Even now bits of plank float seaward, dancing on the rushing waters. Soon the crumbled, broken, crushed remnants of that strong hulk will follow. This watery monster doth not feed upon what he swallows. He destroys for the mere love of destruction. Night had come now. I returned to my ship. The shifting sands and the whirlpool had uncovered their horrors, but I feared them no more. Like the horse tamer, when he has at last succeeded in thrusting the steel bit between the champing and gnashing teeth of the wild young steed, I now felt that they were conquered. "And now for Thor's hammer," was my cry as I sat down beside Bulger for a brief moment's reflection. The first streak of gray light in the east found me on deck. Thor's hammer was a huge shaft of black flinty rock projecting about 20 feet out of the water and ending in a hammer-shaped head. It guarded the channel where it reached the sea, standing exactly in the middle, thus forcing a vessel to pass on one side or the other of it. Beneath the waters, this dread sentinel must have ended in a gigantic ball, which, in the flight of time, had worn a socket for itself in the bedrock of the channel. For it swung loose and free, moved by every powerful billow from side to side, threatening swift destruction to any passing craft. To speak frankly, the sight of this terrible engine of destruction appalled me. How shall I escape the vigilance of this gigantic sentinel, who knows no sleep, no rest, whose blows fall like fury on friend or foe? How shall I lull him to repose for a few brief moments? Determined to study closely the strength, the rapidity, and the character of the blows struck by Thor's hammer, I caused several huge structures of plank and timber to be erected near the position of this mighty sentinel of rock. One after the other, I ordered them to be thrown into the channel. At first, I was fairly paralyzed upon discovering that even the slightest vortex caused by the drifting by of one of these wooden structures set the swinging rock in violent vibration and always toward the passing object. Judging from the effect of Thor's hammer upon these floating masses of plank and timber, a single blow would suffice to crush the very life out of my ship in spite of her unusual stoutness. I stood transfixed with dread forebodings. I could feel the beads of perspiration break from my forehead and trickle down my cheeks. Must I give up and return home broken in spirits, humiliated, the butt of ridicule, the target of village wit, the subject of mirth and laughter in every peasant's cottage? Oh no, I cannot. It must not be. Like a flash of lightning, a thought flamed across the dark horizon of my mind. Am I not dreaming? Was it really so? One of the wooden structures still remained. Controlling my emotion with great difficulty, I ordered it thrown into the channel and took up a favorable position to watch once again the wrath of the towering sentinel. In a few moments, Thor's hammer felt the coming of the craft and bent itself in impotent rage, beating the air with blows which fell faster and faster. Aye, I was right. When once Thor's hammer had begun its labor of death and ruin, it turned not from its task so long as there remained any object for it to spend its fury upon. Nor was there any escape for the ill-fated craft until it had been pounded into flinders. Hanging over it, blow followed blow with fearful clash and clamor. Not until the poor remnant had drifted seaward did that black and flinty shaft cease its furious swinging. Turning to my sailing master, who stood with his wondering eyes fixed full upon me, I called out in a calm and careless tone, "In 3 days, skipper, if the weather is clear, we leave Port No Man's Port." A lump rose up in his throat, but he gulped it down and cried out merrily, "Aye, aye, sir." And what 3 busy days they were, too. My men were not long in catching something of the indomitable spirit of their new commander. I worked them hard, but I fed them well, served out grog with a liberal but wise hand, and saw that all their wants were satisfied. In turn, their wonderment became admiration, and their admiration affection. The first day, all the hands that could be spared were set to work making fishing lines, with a good stout hook at one end and a cork float at the other. The lines were cut about 3 fathoms in length, and the floats were painted a bright crimson. I gave them orders to rig 3 jury masts, one midships, one fore and aft. My men set to work with a will, but I caught them several times in the act of tapping their foreheads and exchanging significant glances. But if this last order threw them into a brown study, my next had the effect of a bombshell exploding in their midst. Sailing master and all, they stood staring at me as if they were only waiting for me to annihilate them. My order was to rig a steering gear under the figurehead. A coasting vessel, which I had sent for, now came sailing leisurely into Port No Man's Port. I directed the skipper to pay her crew 3 months' extra wages and discharge them. This done, my men were ordered to lash the coaster on our starboard side. I verily believe that my whole plan, so carefully studied out, was at this point only saved from utter failure by the wisdom of my faithful Bulger. The coaster had no sooner been lashed to our side than he sprang lightly over the railing and began to amuse himself by gamboling up and down the clear deck. Suddenly, he paused near one of the hatches and broke out into a most furious barking. I called to one of my officers to look sharp and see what the matter was. He reported in a few moments that one of the discharged seamen had been found concealed in the hold. When I threatened to put him in irons, he confessed that his design had been to cut the coaster loose as soon as our ship had drawn near to the whirlpool. It was a narrow escape. Dear, faithful Bulger, how much we owe thee for that discovery. The 3rd day dawned bright and fair. The wind was most favorable, blowing strong offshore. At the first glimmer of light, my men were astir and on the lookout for my appearance. They greeted Bulger and me with 3 hearty cheers. They had made up their minds that what I didn't know, Bulger did. At last, all was ready. I nodded to the sailing master, and in a moment or so, the capstan began to revolve, and the merry "Yo, heave ho!" of the men told me that the anchor had been started. Hundreds of the lines and floats, well baited, were now cast overboard. Standing on the taffrail, glass in hand, I watched them closely and anxiously. Imagine my joy at seeing several of these crimson floats disappear like a flash, rise again and again vanish for an instant. The first point is gained, I cried out. I have found the channel. Passing word quickly to the sailing master, who was in charge of the steering gear, my good vessel moved slowly out of Port No Man's Port, stern first. Again and again, the baited lines with their crimson floats were thrown overboard. The deep water fish that swarmed the ever-shifting channel kept steadily at work. As our ship advanced, they tugged at the lines and thus kept the tortuous course plainly marked out. Glass in hand, I watched the successful working of this part of my plan with tingling veins and a bounding heart. A loud huzzah from my men tell me that we have cleared the shifting sands. Aye, true it is. We have crossed the basin of Port No Man's Port. Its dreaded quicksands swirl and roll in vain. It was not fated that they should engulf the little barren ship. But see, the channel narrows. The waters grow black and troubled, and hark! Didn't you hear that dull roar? I spring down from the taffrail. I pass among my men and drop here and there a word of encouragement. My perfect calmness impresses them. No merry, aye, aye, sir, goes up, but I see a response in their faces. It is, we trust you, little captain, speak. The dull roar grows louder and louder. The rapids catch us up and bear us along like chips on the foaming tide of a mountain stream. Our staunch vessel rocks like a tiny boat. The coaster, lashed to one side, creaks and groans in its wild efforts to break away. Calling Bulger to me, I pass the line around him and lash him firmly to the mainmast, for I was fearful lest a sudden lurch might hurl him overboard. On we speed through the frightened waters. The roar is deafening. I glance at my seamen. Their bronzed faces are blanched. They cling to the shrouds and stays. Their eyes are riveted upon me. Look, the fearful whirlpool is dead ahead of us. It opens its foam-flecked jaws like some terrible monster. We leap into its very mouth. Are we lost? How can it be otherwise? As if our staunch vessel were a nutshell, the swirling, raging, whirling, battling, boiling waters catch her up in their encircling arms, lift her high above the sea level, turn her completely around, and drop her with such terrific force that great walls of water rise on all sides and threaten to engulf the frail wooden thing. But most wondrous change. Mark how she floats upon a glassy pool. The foam dances in the sunlight on the rippling waves. All is peace where but a moment before nature raged with demonic fury. Quick as thought, I leap into the mizzen shrouds. Cut away the jury masts. They fall overboard with a crash. My men work with a mad earnestness. They know too well that every instant may be their last. Our mainsail, already hoisted, is sheeted home without a word or cry. We are too near death to sing. See, see, the wind fills the great sail. We move. The waters seem to scent our escape. They are awakening to new fury. A deep rumble from the very bowels of the earth calls upon them to arouse from their lethargy. They reach out for us. Too late, too late. We sweep out of their reach. We are saved, we are saved. A shout goes up from 200 throats from which fear now takes her hand. Look back, as if robbed of its prey, the whirlpool awakes with redoubled fury. 100 arm-like streams of water gush forth and pour around our good ship in vain effort to draw her back into that terrible vortex. We are drenched with clouds of spray and mist as we slowly but steadily keep on our course. Would that we were safe upon the swelling tide of the open sea, for there is still another danger to be met. Our channel suddenly narrows. I could toss a biscuit to the rocky wall which shuts us in on both sides. Again, a deep silence falls upon ship and crew, broken only by a strange sound of rushing waters bursting out and dying away as regularly as the swing of a pendulum. 'Tis Thor's hammer, beating the frightened waters into foam, and it sways from side to side. And we're going to pause here and we'll go on and see what happens with Thor's hammer in the next video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. I love you guys. As Tigger says, ta-ta for now.